I have received a letter from the honourable member for Deakin proposing that a definite matter of public importance be submitted to the House for discussion, namely the government's failure to address Australia's deteriorating housing crisis. I call upon those honourable members who approve of the proposed discussion to rise in their places and I give the call to the honourable member for Deakin.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, on Tuesday night in the budget, what we saw from this government on housing was no new money, no new homes, no new ideas, just the same old Labor housing crisis. And we see today in question time this very self-satisfied group of frontbenchers talking about new homes and talking about Labor being the champion of new homes. Well, it's inconvenient to remind the government that they have been in government for 2 years. And what do we find from the ABS? We find that the loans provided for the purchase or construction of new homes has not been lower than since records have been kept since 2002. So in the last 22 years, we have not seen a worse outcome for new homes than we have under this government. So no new homes in the budget, no new money in the budget, and we see fewer homes being built than we have at least seen for 22 years. And if the ABS was keeping longer records, I suspect for decades more than that. So we have a failure at the hands of this government, fewer homes being built. Now, what's the one thing you wouldn't do as a government if you had record low numbers of homes being built? What's probably the one thing that the collective wisdom around the shadow cabinet, around the cabinet table, what do you think is the one thing you would not do? You would not ramp up migration to the highest levels we have seen in our history. So we've seen in the 18 months to December of this government 265,000 homes built. 265,000. And it's important to mention that amongst those 265,000 homes that are built, there's a portion, it's hard to calculate, but anywhere from 15 to 25% of those that are not net increases in homes, they're just knockdown rebuilds. So they're a new home, but it's a new home replacing an old one. So it's 265,000 homes in the first 18 months of this government. How many migrants do you think this government brought in over that period? About 900,000. About 900,000. Where on earth does the government think those people were going to live? Well, what do we see? We see vacancy rates now at 1%, vacancy rates lower than 1% in some of our capital cities. And what does that mean? Well, we all see the videos that go around online of the people around the block, people queuing up when there's an open for inspection for a rental. What do we see? We see it more and more difficult for people to find a rental where they have to, or in the suburbs in which they are living. And if you're a family, if you've got children at a local school and you have to find a new rental, there are people in this country that just cannot find one and end up homeless, and we've seen homelessness spike under this government, or even devastatingly for those families, we see them having to move a long way from where they're established, where their children go to school, where their community is. And what do we see from this government? We just see a group of ministers grinning, talking about how wonderfully they're doing in housing. Well, the truth is we've got, as I said, fewer homes being built. We've got first home buyers at their lowest levels since the last time this mob was in government. They've completely waved the white flag on first home ownership. When I was the housing minister in the former coalition government, we got the number of first home buyers in a year up to 180,000. 180,000 first home buyers in 2021. It wasn't by accident. It was through programs like our Home Guarantee Scheme or the Home Builder program or the First Home Super Saver scheme. What have we got them running at this year? At this year, thus far, we're at 90,000 first-home buyers. Thus far, this financial year, running at about half of under the former government. So this government is failing on building homes. it's failing for renters, it's failing for new home buyers. But I have some bad news for the House and for Australians. If you think we are in a housing crisis now, if you think it's intolerable that you can't get a rental, that your children may never face the prospect or have the opportunity of owning their own home, it is about to get worse. The latest housing approval data we've seen has approvals down even further. That means over the next 12 to 18 months, over the next 2 years, even fewer homes are going to be built. So you will have fewer homes built over the next 18 months to 2 years, and you have to take the government at their word when they say, we're going to reverse our form from the last 2 years, we're going to reduce migration. We're going to reduce migration. We're going to have a stunning form reversal, and we're going to now reduce migration. Well, as the Shadow Minister quite rightly pointed out in government, let's look at what they promise versus what they deliver. Well, in their first budget, they only missed their forecasts in migrants by a rounding error of 297,000 people. Just 297,000 people out. So there's nothing at all in the budget on Tuesday night that will give any Australian comfort that this mob even understands the problem. And the truth is, you have to accept that you've created a problem. You have to put your hand up and admit that you have caused untold damage to this country before you can get to fixing it, and we don't see any of that from this government. We see nothing from this government. The only policies that are assisting home buyers, first home buyers in this country, are those policies that were put in place by the former government. We see no new ideas from this government. What did they announce in the lead-up to the budget? They announced $11.3 billion of extra money. That was the announcement. That's what the media release said, $11.3 billion of extra money. What did we find out? Of the $11.3 billion of so-called extra money, 9.3 of it was to continue an agreement that's already been in place for 15 years. So it's an agreement that's been in place for just a lazy 15 years that they, through their good graces, are going to renew, and that's somehow new money. Then we saw there was another $1 billion for the National Housing Finance Infrastructure Facility, a facility that I established and created as minister, a very worthy policy. But then you look at the you then look at the fine detail. The minister announced that money on the 31st of October last year. And what forced her to do that? Well, it was the dirty deal they did in the Senate with the crossbench. So they're now trying to rehash old announcements, bundle it all in together, which again highlights that they just do not get the problem. They do not appreciate that they have created an unprecedented housing crisis in this country. And can I say, as a product of migrants, I love migration. I'm a great beneficiary of it. But it's got to be planned migration. You've got to have an idea of where on earth the people will live, because we have a duty to the Australians that are here now. We have a duty to the people who live here now that they can get a roof over their head. And if you're bringing in 900,000 migrants when there are only 265,000 homes being built, that does not even keep our head above water for our natural population increase, is an absolute stain and a shame that this government will never let down, because they're selling out the next generation of this country. We will not wave the white flag on home ownership on this side of the House. On this side of the House, we believe that every Australian should have the opportunity of home ownership like generations before us. And we are very, very proud of our policies to support those first home buyers. As I said, whether it's helping people get a deposit, getting a home with a deposit of as little as 5% through the Home Guarantee Scheme, or getting access to their own money in superannuation to buy their own home, because that is their money. It is their money, and if they choose to leave it in their superannuation, good luck to you. but you should have the choice to use that to supplement your savings for a deposit to get into a home. There's a generation of Australians that this government and this Labor Party has left behind. They want big corporates owning all the houses. They want lifelong renters. We want Australians who have that opportunity, and we'll fight for them, and the Leader of the Opposition will be fighting for them tonight.